Working quietly in the corner of his shop, he never thought he'd have to face his past. For 25 years, he'd maintained the same routine. Open the shop in the morning, fix broken appliances, close at evening, go home. Never hurting anyone, never talking too much. Until that military radio walked back into his life. Before we begin this powerful story, tell us in the comments which city you're watching from. And if you believe stories like this should never be forgotten, hit that subscribe button. Michael Steele was the quietest man in the neighborhood. 58 years old, graying hair, always messy, hands always stained with oil. His shop sat on one of Brooklyn's back streets. Narrow, dark, filled with old electronics like a cave of forgotten memories. The sign in the window read, "Electronics repair, all devices fixed." But everyone just called it Mike's place. He opened his shop at 8 a.m., closed at 7 p.m. Never took breaks, never took vacations. Customers would come in, drop off their broken devices, and pick them up a few days later. His conversation was minimal. When will it be ready? Tomorrow afternoon. How much? $50. That was it. He never asked questions, never listened to stories. Customers sometimes wanted to share. This radio belonged to my father. We bought this TV for our wedding. But Mike would just nod and continue working. The neighborhood loved him, but didn't know him. He'd been there for 25 years, but no one knew where he came from, whether he had family, or anything about his past. Was he married? Did he have children? None of it was known. Every morning, the same thing. He'd brew coffee, open the shop door, sit in his chair behind the counter, and wait. The first customer usually came around 9 a.m. Mostly middle-aged women bringing broken irons, hair dryers, and blenders. Mike never turned down any device. From the oldest radios to the newest smartphones, he could fix everything. His hands seemed magical. He'd open devices, look inside, find the problem, and solve it. Never rushed, never got frustrated. He didn't take lunch breaks either. A small hot plate sat in the corner where he'd heat up his coffee and eat the sandwich he brought from home. Never went out, never visited anyone. In the evenings, he'd close the shop and walk home the same route. A small, one-bedroom apartment. He'd turn on the TV, watch the news, and sleep. Weekends were the same. An unchanging cycle. Mike had developed a distant but polite relationship with his customers. He was never seen getting angry, never heard raising his voice, but he was never intimate either. Harry from the neighboring shop would sometimes come over trying to chat. "Mike, how do you handle this heat in here?" "I'm used to it." "Do you ever visit your hometown?" "No." "The news on TV is bad these days. Wasn't like this before." "Yeah." Harry had given up by now. Mike didn't like to talk, that was clear. Young customers found him strange. When they brought their phones, Mike tried to ask questions, but the tech language was different now. Still, he learned, he adapted. Older customers understood him better. They didn't like to talk much either. They'd bring their radios and old TVs, and Mike would fix them. That day started like any other. At 8 a.m., he opened the shop, brewed his coffee, sat at his counter. The first customer was Mrs. Johnson, a regular customer with a broken iron. "Good morning, Mike." "Morning." "The iron won't heat up." "I'll take a look. Ready tomorrow." At 10:30 a.m., Mrs. Rodriguez came in with a broken blender. At 11:45 a.m., a young man came in with broken headphones. A normal day, then at 2:30 p.m., the door opened. An elderly man walked in his 70s, white-haired, walking with a slight limp. He carried an old bag. "Hello, sir." "Hello, can you fix this device?" What he pulled from the bag made Mike freeze. It was an old military radio, olive green, corners worn, with USA RMY stamped on it. Mike's hand trembled. Very slightly, barely noticeable. But it trembled. Where did this come from?" Mike asked, a strange tremor in his voice. The elderly man was surprised. Mike had never shown this much interest before. "It belonged to my father," the man said. "He was a soldier, served in Afghanistan in the 1990s. He passed away last week, and I found this while going through his things. I wondered if it still works." Mike took the radio in his hands. He felt its weight, the coldness of the metal surface. His eyes changed, as if he was looking into the distance. "What unit did your father serve in?" 2nd Infantry Division, Kandahar region." Mike's face changed, very slightly, but it changed. "I was there too," he said. so quietly the old man barely heard. You were in the military too? The old man asked, astonished. Mike set the radio on the counter, took a deep breath. This was a subject he hadn't mentioned in 25 years. Staff Sergeant Michael Steele, 2nd Infantry Division Communications Specialist, he said, his voice different now. I served in Afghanistan from 1991 to 1998. The old man's mouth fell open. This quiet repair shop owner was a soldier? What was your father's name? Mike asked. Captain Robert Wilson. Mike's eyes filled with tears. He stood up from his chair, turned around, wiped his eyes. Then he turned back and looked at the old man. Captain Wilson, he was a good commander, a good man. Did you know him? Yes, I knew him very well. Mike took the radio in his hands again. This time his hands weren't trembling, and there was a different light in his eyes. This radio, he said, we conducted so many operations with this radio, saved so many lives. Your father never let go of this radio. Mike, this is our lifeline, he used to say. The old man moved closer. Would you tell me about it? My father never talked about that time. Mike thought for a long time. Then he locked the door and hung the closed sign. Sit down, he said. Let me tell you your father's story. It was 1994, Mike began. Winter season, snow 6 feet deep. 2 of our soldiers had gone missing in the mountains. We hadn't heard from them for 48 hours. Command had given up, but Captain Wilson didn't give up. The old man listened carefully. Mike, get the radio ready. We're going out, he said. Just the 2 of us. Midnight in a blizzard. 20 below zero. We climbed the mountain. For 6 hours with this radio, we searched for signals. Finally, we found them. Mike paused, his eyes distant. 1 was wounded, the other was freezing. Captain Wilson carried the wounded one on his back. I carried the other. We walked for 4 hours. With this radio, I constantly gave coordinates to base. Your father never complained, never said, let's give up. Did you save them both? Yes. Both are alive today. One's a teacher in Chicago. The other's an engineer in Denver. That night, Captain Wilson prevented 2 families from being destroyed. When I was discharged in 1998, Mike continued, Captain Wilson wanted to give me this radio. Take it, Mike. It's yours, he said. I didn't take it. This is your memory, I said. One day your children will ask. You can tell them. The old man's eyes filled with tears. He never told us. He never told any of us. He wouldn't. That's the kind of person he was. Humble, quiet, but brave. Very brave. Mike opened the radio, looked inside. Let's see if it still works. He pressed the button. The device worked. The old, familiar tone was heard. Listen, Mike said, extending the radio to the old man. Your father's voice still echoes on this frequency. The faint sound from the radio brought both men to silence. The voice of the past. The voice of sacrifice. The voice of brotherhood. Why didn't you ever tell anyone? The old man asked. Mike shrugged. What was there to tell? We did our job. I left a lot behind when I came here. That period ended. A new life began. But this is important. People should know. They don't need to know. Those who know, know. The old man stood up, approached Mike. Thank you, he said, knowing that you knew my father, learning what kind of person he was. I should thank you, Mike said. It was good to talk about Captain Wilson. I want to give you this radio as a gift. No, that's your inheritance from your father. Keep it at home. Tell your children about it. Then you tell them. I have a son, 25 years old. He never met his grandfather. He was too young when he died. Tell him. Mike thought for a long time. For the first time in 25 years, he was facing his past. You can bring him, he said finally, but I'll only tell your father's story. Not my own. Deal. The old man took the radio and walked toward the door. Then he turned. Mike, you're a hero. I'm not a hero. I just did my job. Sometimes doing your job requires heroism. The man left. Mike stood for a long time. Then he opened the shop door and hung the open sign. But nothing was the same anymore. From that day on, Mike changed a little. He was still quiet, still maintained the same routine. But sometimes he talked a little more with customers. Sometimes he smiled. The old man's son came a week later. He brought the radio, listened to his grandfather's story. When he left, his eyes were full of tears. I won't forget this story, he said. Don't forget, Mike said. But don't mix up my name. This is Captain Wilson's story. Mike still works in the same shop, with the same routine. He still loves the same silence, but he's no longer running from his past. Because sometimes the past comes back to guide the future. If you think this story touched you, tell us your city in the comments, and subscribe to help ensure stories like this continue to be told. Silent heroes like Mike are all around us. It's our responsibility to notice them. It's ability.